The marketplace was loud, filled with voices of merchants, buyers, and slaves crying for freedom. The smell of smoke and dust hung in the air. Aliens of many shapes and colors walked between the stalls, their eyes searching for cheap labor, fighters, or servants. And in the center of the chaos stood a small cage. Inside it sat a girl. She was not like the others. Her skin was pale blue, almost gray from hunger. Her hair tangled, her clothes torn. Her hands carried scars that told the story of chains and whips. She kept her head down, her eyes dull. The dealers called her broken. They laughed as they shouted her name to the crowd. "Look at this one. Broken alien girl. Worthless. You can take her for almost nothing," one of the guards yelled. People walked by, some stopped only to laugh. Others turned away, shaking their heads. No one wanted a broken slave. No one wanted someone who looked empty, useless, finished. The girl did not speak. She had learned long ago that speaking only brought pain. Every time she spoke, someone had told her to shut up. Every time she cried, someone had hit her harder, so she stayed silent. Her heart was heavy, her hope nearly gone. She thought this was the end of her journey. She would be sold to some cruel hand, or maybe left to rot in the cage. The dealers tried to make her look better. They shouted about her strength, her skills. But even they gave up after some time. "She's broken, just take her away for anything, even one coin," they mocked. Then, in the middle of the crowd, someone different appeared. A human. Humans were rare in this market. Most of them avoided such dark places, but this one walked slowly. His eyes sharp, his clothes simple, but his presence strong. He didn't shout, he didn't laugh, he just looked. His eyes stopped at the cage, at the girl who was called Broken. She raised her head just a little, expecting the same cruel smile, but instead she saw something else. His eyes didn't laugh. They didn't pity. They were searching, serious, almost sad. The dealers noticed him. "Hey, human, look here. This one is cheap, broken, useless. Take her if you want a toy. Take her if you want garbage." They laughed again. The human did not answer. He stepped closer. His shadow fell across the cage. The girl looked at him carefully. Her heart beat faster. She wondered why he was looking at her like that. For a long moment, silence filled the space. Between them, the marketplace noise faded in her ears. It was as if only this stranger existed. Finally, he spoke. His voice calm but strong. "How much?" The dealer blinked, then laughed. "You really want her? You humans are strange. She's broken. She will bring you nothing but trouble. But if you want her, fine. Give me one coin. She is yours." The crowd burst into laughter. People shook. Their heads, some whispered. Foolish human wasting money on trash, but the human didn't care. He pulled out a coin and placed it in the dealer's hand. He didn't even try to argue for less. He simply said, "Open the cage." The girl froze. She couldn't understand. Was this real? Was this another cruel trick? She had seen men buy slaves only to torture them for fun. Maybe this was the same, maybe this was worse. But the cage door opened with a rusty sound. The dealer pulled her out by the arm and shoved her toward the human. "She's yours now. Don't cry later when she's useless," he sneered. The girl stumbled, nearly falling, but strong hands caught her. She looked up at the human again. His face was calm, his eyes steady. Not cruel, not mocking. He whispered softly, words no one else could hear. "You are not broken, the..." Words hit her like fire. Her chest tightened, her eyes watered. For the first time in years, no one had ever said that to her. Not once. The human placed his coat around her shoulders, protecting her from the cold air. He looked back at the dealer and the laughing crowd. "You don't know her worth," he said firmly, "but I do." The marketplace fell silent for a brief moment. His words carried weight, and even those who mocked him felt uneasy. The girl, weak and trembling, leaned against him as they walked away. Each step felt unreal. Each moment felt like a dream she would soon wake from. But the human didn't let go. His grip was gentle yet strong. He guided her away from the noise, away from the cage, away from the word broken. For the first time in her life, she wondered, maybe, just maybe, someone had truly seen her, and that thought, small but powerful, burned inside her like the first spark of light in endless darkness. The marketplace still whispered about the strange scene. A human had bought the alien girl that no one wanted. For only 1 coin for nothing, people laughed even after they walked away. Crazy human, one merchant muttered. He wasted money on a broken thing. Maybe he is lonely, another joked. Even garbage looks like treasure to a fool. But the human didn't care. He walked calmly, the girl leaning weakly against him. His coat covered her shoulders. Hiding the scars on her arms, his steps were steady, as if he had decided something long before he came. The girl, however, was lost in confusion. Her legs shook, her chest felt heavy. She couldn't understand. Why had he taken her? Why didn't he laugh like the others? Why didn't he call her broken, she whispered, her voice dry and cracked. Why? Me? The human glanced down, his eyes softened. Because you are not what they say. She lowered her gaze quickly, afraid to believe, afraid that hope would hurt more than chains. For years, people had only called her useless, worthless, broken. To hear anything else felt dangerous, it felt unreal. They reached a quiet corner of the city, away from the slave market. The human guided her to a small rest stop, a place where food vendors sold cheap meals. He bought a bowl of warm stew and placed it in front of her. She stared at the bowl as if it were a trap. Her hands trembled, she whispered, For me? Yes, he said simply. Eat. Her fingers moved slowly, carefully, as if someone might slap them away. She lifted a spoon and tasted. The warmth filled her empty stomach. Her eyes stung with tears she didn't want to show. The human didn't rush her. He didn't push questions, he just sat there quietly, watching the crowd pass by as if he had all the time in the world. Finally, the girl asked again, her voice still unsure. Why pay for me, when they said I am worth nothing? The human leaned back in his chair, his voice calm but firm. Because they don't see what I see. She blinked, confused. What do you see? For a moment, he didn't answer. He studied her carefully, as if her question mattered more than anything else. Then he said, I see someone still alive, still breathing, still fighting. If you were truly broken, you would not be here. Her chest tightened. The words echoed inside her like a forgotten melody. She looked away quickly, afraid that if she met his eyes too long, he would see the fragile hope she was trying to hide. But deep down, a spark lit inside her, something small but dangerous. Belief. The vendors around them kept whispering. Some even approached the human, laughing. Sell her back to us, human, we'll give you the same coin you wasted. Another smirked. Or better, trade her for a drink. She's not even worth food. The human stood, his eyes cold now. He placed a hand on the girl's shoulder as if shielding her. She is not for sale. The laughter grew louder, but the man's voice cut through like steel. You call her nothing, but one day you will see how wrong you are. The girl stared at him, stunned. No one had ever spoken like that for her. Not once. In her world, she had always been the last choice. The forgotten one, the broken one. But here was a stranger fighting her worth with only words. The vendors backed away, still laughing but uneasy. The human paid for the meal and helped the girl stand. Together they left the noisy place. As they walked through the narrow streets, the girl whispered again, Why, protect me. The human looked down at her, his expression serious. Because everyone deserves a chance to be seen. You deserve more than chains and laughter. Her throat closed. She wanted to speak more, but no words came. Only silence and the strange warmth spreading inside her chest. They passed an alley where shadows moved. A group of men, slave hunters, watched the girl carefully, their eyes narrow, greedy. That's the broken one whispered. The human took her. Maybe we can take her back. The girl noticed them and froze. Her heart raced. Fear returned. She tugged at the human's sleeve gently, whispering, They will come. He stopped, turned, and faced the alley with steady eyes. Let them. he said, his voice calm but dangerous. The men hesitated. They saw something in his eyes that warned them, a strength that didn't come from size or weapons, but from a will unshaken. Slowly they stepped back into the shadows. The girl looked at him in awe. No one had ever stood between her and danger. No one had ever looked at her as more than a burden. When they finally reached the edge of the city, she whispered the words she never thought she would say. "Thank you." The human glanced at her, a small smile on his lips. "Don't thank me yet. You still don't know your worth." Her eyes widened. Her breath caught. She didn't understand what he meant. But deep down, she wanted to. She wanted to believe. There was something inside her worth saving, worth protecting. As the night fell, the city lights faded behind them, and for the first time in her life, the broken girl walked not as property, not as nothing, but as someone beside a man who saw her differently. The crowd had called her worthless. The dealers had sold her for almost nothing. But the bargain was not about money. The bargain was about belief, and belief she was beginning to realize was more powerful than chains. The city lights faded behind them, replaced by the quiet of the open road. The human walked with steady steps, the alien girl following beside him. She was still weak, her body thin, her spirit heavy. But for the first time in years, she was outside a cage. The night was cool. Stars stretched across the sky. The girl kept glancing at them as if they were strangers too. For so long she had seen only iron bars and dark walls. Now the open sky felt unreal, almost frightening. She walked. Silently, her mind full of questions, but fear kept her lips closed. She wondered, who was this human? Why had he taken her? Why didn't he treat her like trash the way everyone else did? The human finally spoke after a long silence, his voice calm. "Are you tired?" The girl froze. She didn't know how to answer. No one had ever asked her what she felt. If she was tired, hungry, or hurt, people only ordered her, never cared. She nodded slowly, not trusting her own voice. He pointed toward a quiet spot near the trees. "We'll rest there." They sat down, the grass soft beneath them. The human opened a small bag he carried. Inside were simple supplies: bread, water, a blanket. He handed the bread to her. She stared at it as if it were gold. She took a bite, carefully, then another. Tears pricked her eyes without permission. It wasn't the bread, it was the simple kindness, a kindness she had forgotten existed. The human broke the silence again. "You don't have to be afraid here." Her hands shook. She wanted to believe him, but her past screamed louder. "Afraid is all I know," she whispered, her voice low. He looked at her, eyes steady. "Then we will teach you something else." She blinked, confused. "Teach me?" "Yes," he said simply, "that you are more than what they told you. That you are not broken." Her chest tightened. His words felt like light pressing against closed doors in her heart. She wanted to push them away, yet part of her longed to keep them. The night grew colder. The human spread the blanket and gave it to her. She hesitated, looking at him carefully. In her old life, nothing was free. Everything given had a price. She whispered, "What do you want?" In return. His expression softened. "Nothing, just rest." Her eyes widened. She didn't understand. No price? No punishment? She lay down slowly, the blanket around her. For the first time in years, she felt warm. The human sat nearby, keeping watch. His eyes scanned the shadows, alert. He didn't look tired. He didn't close his eyes. He was protecting her. She turned on her side, staring at him in the dim starlight. He looked strong but not cruel, calm but ready. A strange thought crossed her mind. Maybe he was not a master, but something else, something safer. The girl closed her eyes, sleep pulling her in. For once, she didn't dream of chains. She dreamed of open skies. The morning came with soft sunlight and the sound of birds. She woke slowly, the warmth of the blanket still around her. For a moment she panicked, thinking it had all been a dream, but then she saw the human sitting nearby, sharpening a small knife, calm and steady. He noticed her eyes open. "Did you sleep well?" She nodded, though her throat was tight. She had never been asked such a question before. It felt strange, but also gentle. They began walking again. The path led through quiet forests and small rivers. The girl stayed silent, but her mind was loud. She studied the human, how he moved, how he never pushed her, never mocked her. After hours, her legs weakened. She stumbled on a rock and fell to her knees. Fear shot through her. She waited for anger, for a slap, for shouting. That was always the response before, but the human only bent down and helped her up. His voice calm. "It's all right. Take your time." She froze, staring at him. Shock spread across her face. No anger, no cruelty, only patience, she whispered without thinking. "Why are you kind?" He looked at her, silent for a moment, then he said, "Because the world already gave you enough pain, you don't need more." Her eyes burned. She quickly looked away, hiding the tears she didn't want him to see. As the sun began to set, they reached a hill overlooking a small village in the distance. Smoke rose from chimneys. Lights glowed in windows. It looked peaceful. Safe. The girl stopped, her chest tight. Villages meant people, and people meant stairs, laughter, cruelty. Her body trembled. "They will laugh at me, call me broken again," she whispered. The human stood beside her, his gaze on the village. "Let them laugh if they must," he said, his tone firm. "They don't decide who you are." She stared at him, his words sinking deep. No one had ever defended her like this. No one had ever said she could be more than what the world called her. As the sky darkened and stars returned, the silent journey carried something new with it. Trust, fragile but real, forming between the broken girl and the human who refused to see her as broken. For the first time in her life, she felt that her road might not end in pain, but in something she had never dared to imagine, a chance. The small village ahead looked peaceful, but inside the alien girl's chest, fear twisted like a knife. She walked slowly behind the human, her eyes on the ground. Her mind screamed that people would laugh, that they would see her scars and call her broken again. But when they entered, the villagers barely looked. Some nodded at the human, some smiled politely. No one shouted, no one mocked. The girl kept waiting for cruelty, but it never came. It confused her even more. The human found a quiet inn on the edge of the village. He paid for a simple room. The innkeeper glanced at the girl but said nothing. Rude. He only handed over the key. The girl followed the human upstairs, her hands shaking. Inside the room there was a small bed, a wooden chair, and a window that opened to the night sky. The human placed his bag down and spoke gently. "You should rest here." She froze near the doorway, her back pressed against the wall. Her voice trembled. "Why? Why do you do all this?" He turned, his eyes calm. "Because you need it." Her heart pounded, her past whispered again. "No one gives without taking," she said bitterly. "Everyone wants something." The human didn't argue. He sat in the chair, his voice low. "Then let me tell you something no one else will ask for. Your story." Her body stiffened. Fear flooded her chest. No one had ever asked her story before. They only used her body, her strength, her silence. Her story had never mattered. She shook her head quickly. "No, it doesn't matter. It will only bring pain." But the human's eyes didn't move, steady and patient. "It matters. Because it is yours." The words cracked something inside her. She sat slowly on the edge of the bed, her hands gripping the blanket tightly. Her lips trembled. She tried to hold the memories down, but they pushed forward. Her voice was barely a whisper at first. "They called me broken because I refused." The human leaned forward slightly, listening. She continued, halting. When I was taken, they wanted me to serve, to obey without question. But I fought, I screamed, I bit. I did not let them crush me. They punished me for every act of defiance, whips, chains, hunger, until I fell silent. Her breath shook, her hands trembled. They wanted me to break, to believe I was nothing, but I never gave them that, so they gave me a new name, Broken Girl. Not because I was broken, but because I refused to break the way they wanted. Tears slid down her cheeks. She tried to wipe them away quickly. Ashamed, the human's jaw tightened. His eyes burned with anger, not at her but at those who had done this. They lied to you, he said firmly. They tried to turn your strength into weakness. But I see the truth. You are not broken. You are unbroken, her eyes widened. The word hit her chest like thunder. Unbroken? She whispered, as if tasting it for the first time. Yes, he said, voice steady. You endured what would have destroyed many. They tried to crush you, and yet you are still here. That is not broken. That is strength. Her tears came harder. Her body shook with sobs she had buried for years. She pressed her hands to her face, ashamed to cry, ashamed to feel. But the human didn't look away. He didn't mock her. He let her cry. The room filled with silence, broken only by her trembling. Breath slowly, she lowered her hands, her eyes red but lighter somehow. No one ever said that before, she whispered. The human leaned back in the chair, his voice calm but sharp. That is because they were afraid of you, afraid of the strength you didn't even know you had. She stared at him, her mind spinning. Could it be true? Could all those years of pain mean she was strong, not weak? For the first time she allowed herself to think, maybe she was not what they said, maybe she was more. Later that night she lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. The human sat by the window watching the village lights fade into darkness. She whispered into the quiet, If I am not broken, then who am I? The human turned, his face serious. That is for you to discover, but I will walk beside you until you do. Her chest tightened again, but this time, it wasn't fear. It was something else. Something dangerous but beautiful. Hope. She closed her eyes, and for the first time she didn't dream of chains or laughter. She dreamed of standing tall, unbroken. But far outside the village, in the dark woods, shadows moved. The slave dealers had not forgotten. They had seen the human walk away with the girl, and they were not willing to let go so easily. They whispered among themselves, their eyes glowing with greed. She belongs to us, one growled. We will take her back, broken or not. The night was calm, but danger was already moving closer. And the girl's story, once buried in silence, was about to be tested again. The morning sun rose slowly, filling the small inn room with pale light. The girl sat by the window, her arms wrapped around her knees. She hadn't spoken since the night before. Her heart was still heavy with the memories she had shared. But in that heaviness there was something new, his words echoing inside her. You are unbroken. The human packed their few belongings, his movements calm. We can't stay here long, he said softly. It's safer to keep moving. She nodded quietly, though fear stirred in her chest. She knew the dealers would come. She knew the chains were never far behind. But she followed him, step by step, because something inside her whispered that with him, she could be more than broken. They walked through the forest path, sunlight breaking through the tall trees. The girl stumbled now and then, her body still weak. But each time the human slowed down, never rushing her, never mocking her. Hours passed before they reached a small clearing near a river. The human stopped and looked at her. Rest, he said simply. She sat by the water, dipping her fingers into the cool stream. For a moment, she watched her reflection, her pale skin, her hollow cheeks, the scars on her neck. It was the face of someone who had survived, not the face of nothing. The human sat nearby, sharpening a stick into a spear, his voice calm but curious. Do you know what they feared most about you? She frowned, shaking her head slowly. They said, I had nothing. He shook his head. No, They feared what you carried inside, something they could not chain. Her eyes narrowed, confused. What do you mean? He paused before answering. I saw it last night in your eyes when you spoke. There is a fire there, a strength you don't even realize. The girl laughed weakly, shaking her head. Strength? Look at me, I can barely walk. The human leaned forward, his gaze steady. Strength is not only in the body, it is in the will, and yours is still alive. Her chest tightened. His words made her heart race, but doubt still pulled her down. If I had strength, they wouldn't have hurt me, she whispered. He shook his head firmly. No. They hurt you because they couldn't control you. That's the truth. The wind shifted suddenly, carrying voices through the trees. Harsh, greedy voices. The girl froze, fear flashing across her face. She knew those voices. She would never forget them. The slave dealers. The human stood quickly, spear in hand, his eyes sharp. He motioned for her to stay low. The men stepped into the clearing, their cruel smiles spreading. There she is, one sneered. The broken girl and the fool who bought her. The girl's heart pounded. She felt her body shake. She wanted to run, to hide, to disappear, but her legs would not move. The dealers circled slowly, weapons in their hands. Hand her over. Human. She belongs to us. The human's voice cut like iron. She belongs to no one. The men laughed. You think you can fight us alone? The girl trembled harder. She wanted to scream, to beg, to vanish. But then something strange stirred deep inside her chest. A heat, a pressure, something long buried. Her vision blurred, her breath quickened, her hands shook. Not with fear, but with something else, something dangerous. The leader of the dealers stepped forward, raising his whip. Move aside, or we'll break you too. The human didn't move, his spear ready, his body steady. But before he could strike, the girl cried out. Not in fear, but in force. A wave of energy burst from her body, invisible yet heavy. It slammed into the men, knocking them back as if the air itself had turned solid. They crashed to the ground, groaning in shock. The girl gasped, clutching her chest. Her body shook violently. She didn't understand what had just happened. The human turned, his eyes wide but calm. So that's it, he whispered. That's what they feared. The dealers scrambled to their feet, fear flashing across their faces. She's cursed, one shouted. That's why we tried to break her. But the girl wasn't listening. Her heart thundered, her body trembling. What did I do? The human stepped closer, placing his hand gently on her shoulder. You released what they tried to bury. This is your strength. She shook her head, tears spilling from her eyes. No, it's dangerous. I hurt them. I could hurt you. He looked at her firmly, his voice steady. Dangerous only if you let fear control it, but if you learn it, if you trust it, it will make you free. Her breath shook. His words sank deep. For years she had believed she was broken, worthless. But now, with the burst of power still echoing in the air, she realized something. Maybe they had called her broken because they were terrified of what she truly was. The dealers, still groaning on the ground, began crawling away, muttering, Not worth it. She's not worth it. The human watched them go, then turned back to her. Do you see now? You are not broken. You are dangerous to them because they could never own you. She stared at him, her heart pounding, her hands still trembling with the memory of the burst. Slowly she whispered, If this is strength, then maybe I am not nothing. The human's eyes softened. You were never nothing. Her tears fell freely now, but this time they were not only of sorrow. They carried something else, something new. A beginning. And as the forest grew quiet, again the girl knew one truth she had never dared before. Her hidden strength had awakened, and the world would never see her as broken again. The forest was silent again, only the sound of the river flowing nearby. The girl sat on the ground, still shaking from what had happened. Her chest rose and fell quickly. She touched her hands as if trying to understand the force that had burst out of her. The human crouched beside her, his voice calm. Breathe. It's all right. She looked at him with wide, frightened eyes. I didn't mean to. I didn't want to hurt anyone. He shook his head slowly. You didn't choose it out of cruelty. You defended yourself. That power is part of you. Her voice cracked. That's why they hated me. That's why they called me broken. The human's eyes hardened. No. They hated you because they couldn't control you. That's not broken, it's freedom. She pressed her hands against her chest, whispering, But what if I can't control it? What if it hurts you? He looked straight into her eyes, his tone steady. Then we'll learn together until it obeys you, not your fear. For a moment, silence wrapped around them. The girl wanted to believe him, but fear still curled inside, her heart like a shadow. That night they found a hidden cave to rest. The human lit a small fire and the glow danced across the stone walls. The girl sat close, wrapping her arms around herself. The memory of the men flying back from her burst still played in her mind. The human handed her some bread. Eat. You'll need strength. She took it, chewing slowly, her eyes on the flames. After a long pause, she whispered, Do you think they'll stop coming? He glanced at her, his jaw tight. No, they won't stop. Not until they either catch you or realize they can't. Her stomach sank. Then, they'll never stop. He leaned closer, his voice firm. Then we don't hide. We face them. Her eyes widened. Face them? There are too many. The human's expression didn't change. Numbers don't matter. What matters is courage. And now, you have something they fear. She fell silent, his words heavy in her chest. She didn't feel brave. She felt fragile. But when she remembered how the dealers looked at her, fear in their eyes, she realized he was right. By the next day, rumors had already spread. Word traveled fast through the villages and slave camps. The broken girl was alive. And she wasn't broken at all. The dealers gathered again, this time larger in number. Greedy masters who had once laughed at her now wanted her back more than ever. Not because she was weak, but because of the power she had shown. One of them slammed his fist on a table. That human has ruined everything. He thinks he can steal from us. No, we'll take her back and we'll make him watch. Another sneered. If her power is real, then she belongs to us even more. Imagine what we could do with it. They prepared weapons, chains stronger than iron, nets that glowed with electric energy. And when night fell, they moved silently toward the forest. The girl felt it before she heard it, a strange pressure in the air. Her chest tightened. She looked up at the human, whispering, They're coming. He nodded, already alert, his spear in hand, his eyes sharp. Stay behind me. But she shook her head quickly, fear and determination mixing inside her. No, I can't just hide again. Not anymore. The human glanced at her, studying her trembling frame. He gave a short nod. Then stand with me. The shadows of the trees stretched long, and soon the sound of footsteps filled the forest. Dozens of dealers appeared, their eyes gleaming with hunger and greed. There she is, one hissed. The unbroken girl, the leader smirked. Hand her over. Human, walk away. And maybe we'll let you live. The human tightened his grip on the spear, his voice sharp. She is not yours. She was never yours. The men laughed, circling slowly. You can't fight all of us. You'll die. Protecting her. The girl trembled, her heart racing. Her power stirred inside, wild and unpredictable. She whispered almost to herself, I don't want to be afraid anymore. The human's voice reached her ears, calm but strong. Then don't. You're not broken. You are stronger than they ever were. The words struck her heart, and something inside cracked open. The air around her shimmered. Her fear mixed with courage, and the strange force surged again. The dealers lunged forward, nets glowing, chains clanging. But before they could touch her, the girl raised her hands. A wave of energy exploded outward, brighter and stronger than before. The forest lay quiet after the battle. Broken branches scattered on the ground. The smell of smoke still in the air. The girl stood with her chest rising and falling fast, her hands trembling. The glow around her had faded, but inside she could still feel it, that hidden strength that had finally woken. The human watched her carefully, his spear still in hand, his voice calm but steady. "You did it," she turned to him, fear and wonder in her eyes. But it was wild. "I couldn't control it." He shook his head. "Control will come. What matters is that you no longer believe their lies. They called you broken, but now the whole galaxy will know the truth." Her throat tightened. Her voice barely came out. "But they'll keep coming, won't they? They won't stop." The human placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Then we will make them stop." Days passed. The dealers spread their threats. They promised an army would come to take her back. Yet the girl no longer shrank into the shadows. She walked beside the human, her back straighter, her eyes sharper. Every night by the fire she practiced, the human taught her to breathe, to focus, to let the energy move through her instead of exploding out. At first she failed. Sparks flew, trees bent, but slowly, step by step, she began to feel the rhythm of her own strength. One night after a long practice, she whispered, "All this time I thought I was nothing, but maybe I was only asleep." The human smiled faintly. "And now you are awake." Her heart warmed at his words, but fear still lingered at the edges. Fear that the dealers would return with more than chains, with war. That war came sooner than expected. At dawn, the ground shook with marching feet. The girl and the human stood at the edge of a hill, looking down at the forest path. Dozens of dealers, hunters, and mercenaries advanced. Their leader rode in front, shouting, "She belongs to us. The human cannot protect her forever." The girl's stomach knotted, her knees weakened. For a moment she felt like the caged girl again, but then she remembered his words. "You are unbroken." The human stood tall beside her, his voice strong. "This is it, no more running, no more cages." The girl's heart pounded. She took a deep breath, and for the first time she didn't hide behind him. She stepped forward, facing the army herself. The dealers laughed at the sight. "Look at her. Still weak, still broken," one shouted. But the girl raised her hands, her eyes steady. "I am not broken," she said, her voice carrying across the field. "I was never broken." The air shimmered. The ground rumbled. Her power rose, not wild this time, but focused. It spread like light, pressing against the enemy. The army hesitated, fear flickering in their eyes. The leader snarled, "Chains! Take her down." But the chains snapped in midair before they reached her, broken apart by invisible force. The hunters stumbled, their weapons useless. The human joined her side, his spear ready. "They fear you now. Show them why." The girl closed her eyes, letting the strength flow. It burst outward, not to destroy but to shield. A wave of energy surrounded her and the human, bright and unshakable. The enemy slammed against it and fell back. Screams filled the forest. The dealers tried again and again, but nothing could break through. Some dropped their weapons and ran, others shouted in terror, "She's not broken, she's unstoppable." At last, only the leader remained, his face pale with rage and fear. He glared at her. "You should have been nothing. You should have been ours." The girl stepped forward, her voice firm. "I am not yours, I am not broken, I am free." The leader stumbled back, defeated by her words as much as her strength. He turned and fled into the trees. Silence followed. The battlefield lay empty except for broken weapons and the echo of fear. The girl lowered her hands, the glow fading. Her knees trembled, but she stood tall. The human looked at her with quiet pride. "Now they know your worth." Her chest tightened. Tears filled her eyes. She whispered, "But you were the first to see it." He placed his hand on her shoulder, his voice soft. "I didn't give you worth, you had it all along, I only reminded you." She swallowed hard, her tears spilling. For years she had believed the lies. For years she had carried the name broken, but now she knew the truth. She was stronger than chains, stronger than laughter, stronger than fear. Together, they walked away from the battlefield, the sun rising behind them. For the first time, the girl didn't feel like a shadow. She felt like herself. The world had sold her for nothing, but one human had seen her true worth, and that worth, unbroken and priceless, would carry her into a new life. Free,